Well, I have 7 o'clock. So unless I see any objection from the folks on my screen, not seeing any, I'm going to ask Steve to start recording.
Thank you. We are recording.
We are recording. Welcome everybody to the 2020 Hopkinton School District meeting. Thank you all for attending. It's great to see over 100 people joining us this evening. This is going to be a bit of a surprise, but I'm going to ask Jim O'Brien to give us a little statement on the 91A requirements, because I know you're so well versed in those.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. That was a surprise. And so as we've been conducting our regular board meeting, school board meetings, we will be conducting this meeting under RSA 91A, which is open meeting guidelines in New Hampshire statute. Because we are under the governor's emergency declaration, that emergency declaration and emergency orders allows for public bodies such as ours to conduct our business virtually. And so there's no physical location for this meeting. It's all being done virtually. You're joining us either via Zoom, YouTube Live, or over the phone. And so we provided links for the public to be able to watch the meeting and then participate in the meeting. So that's allowed under the governor's emergency order, but all the other provisions of RSA 91A are in order and we'll comply with them, which includes minutes from the meeting, and the recording will be made available following the conclusion of this meeting for the public to be able to go back and review this. I think that concludes it.
Great, thank you very much, Jim. In order to maintain some feeling of normalcy with past meetings, I'm wearing my bow tie tonight, and we'll now pass the microphone over to Steve, who will manage the Pledge of Allegiance by several of our long-serving but retiring teachers, followed by the national anthem. Steve?
It is my pleasure to introduce Deb Jones, Sheila Conley, and Queen LaJoy for the pledge tonight. Deb, numeracy specialist for over 32 years serving the district. Sheila, our school nurse at Harold Martin School, over 19 years, and Corinne LaJoy is the director of school counseling for 20 years. So we wish them well. We're going to share the screen and hope that that all works well. We're going to share the screen. Can you see the pledge? That all works well.
Yes, we can.
I pledge allegiance.
Can you see the pledge? Works well.
Of the United States.
Yes, we can.
Of America. I pledge allegiance to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
I think something happened with the audio there.
Just a little.
All right. I'll wait. I've got some tech support coming. Something happened with the audio there.
Just a little.
All right. I'll wait. I've got some tech support coming. Something happened with the audio there.
Just a little.
All right. I'll wait. I've got I'm going to try the pledge. I'm going to mute my screen first, I think. Let's see what. I'm going to try the pledge. I'm going to mute my screen.
It proved through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star spangled banner for the land of the free and the home of the
Thank you very much, and sorry about the quality of that. If we have that as the only technical glitch today, I think we should be happy about that. So moving along, I'd like to just open with a quick statement and then go over some of the rules and the agenda and move the process forward. Please join me in keeping all of our essential workers in a variety of jobs in our thoughts and prayers as we navigate this difficult situation. My hope of being able to hold our regular traditional meeting format has unfortunately passed us by. I believe the proposed procedures will enable us to hold a safe and valid meeting that determines the will of the voters in answering the warrant article questions. I strongly believe that it is the voters who should decide these important questions for our community. In deciding on the question of moving forward in this format, we have consulted with members of the school board, the New Hampshire School Board Association, School Council, the Attorney General's Office, the Town Health Officer, State Department of Public Health, and the Bowes School Superintendent and School Moderator who held their meeting with similar but not quite the same rules. Our agenda today will be for me to present a summary of the proposed rules that were mailed to every town address on Saturday, along with additional information and are also available on the school district website. Then we will hear about the articles, starting with an opening statement from Liz Durant, School Board Chair. Then we will move on to Article 1 and hear from the Budget Committee. Article 2, we will hear from the representative of the petitioners, and then the school board, and then on to the remainder of the articles presented by the school board. Following the presentation, we will have a period of public comment. I would like tonight's comments to be comments, including suggested amendments to the articles, while we focus questions and answers for Friday. The chat function on Zoom will not be monitored by me or the board and will not become part of the minutes or the public record. So I think that covers the agenda for tonight's rules. At the conclusion of today's session, there will be a period of time through noon on Thursday for voters to provide additional comments, questions, and suggested amendments to the articles via email at moderator@sau66.org or by voicemail at 746-1089. These will be repeated later in the meeting as well. We will then meet again on Friday at 7 p.m. At this meeting, I will propose the motions to amend based on the comments received. I will pose questions received to the school board, who will have the opportunity to answer. Then there will be a public period for voters to ask questions directly to the school board and to provide further comments. Motions to amend will not be accepted at that stage of the meeting on Friday. At the conclusion of the meeting, the board will move the warrant with motions to amend. Following that session, probably before the session, but no later than following it, the final ballot will be available on the school district website that you can print at home, complete, and bring with you on Saturday for voting. If you are unable to print at home, we will have ballots and pencils available for you. Saturday will be the voting session. Voting will be from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. We ask that voters with the last name beginning with A through K to vote between 9 and 11, K through Z between 11 and 1.
All right, well, we learned.
Voters will not be turned away for coming outside of these requested times. Please use the Park Avenue entrance, drive around behind the school to the supervisors of the checklist table. Please check in by showing your driver's license through the rolled up window to the assistant or yelling so they can hear you and relay that name and address to the supervisors. After checking in, pick up a ballot and pencil if you need one, or pull up to the ballot box. When you come to the ballot box, I will confirm the number of ballots and the voter matches the number of voters in the car. Then you can put your ballot in the box and pull away safely and enjoy the rest of your day. After ballots close, I, with some assistance, will count and recount the ballots and will post the results as soon as possible on the school district website and other sites to get the results known to the community. As with our regular meeting, there is no same-day voter registration and all voting must be done in person. As with the regular meeting, the meeting is able to overrule the decisions made by me, the moderator. To do so, you would vote no on whether to accept the proposed rules, which is the first question on the ballot. If overruled, no other votes will be counted, and I will recess the meeting for another day with another set of rules. The amendments to any articles will be counted in the order they appear on the ballot, and once an amendment is adopted, subsequent votes on that article will not be counted, as that motion will have passed. Therefore, please vote on each and every question, motion, and article. I will remind the meeting of these rules and voting process in the next session as well. With that, I would like to invite Liz to make her opening statement.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for making the time to attend our virtual annual school district meeting presentations tonight. My name is Liz Durant, and I'm the previous chair of the Hopkinton School Board. With me tonight are the 2019-20 board members, Bill Chapin, Matt Blanchard, Jim O'Brien, and Norm Goupel. I want to thank them for their ongoing support and commitment to the Hopkinton schools. Also attending the meeting are our 2020-21 board members, Andrea Folsom, Rob Nato, and Seth Aframe. Thank you very much for serving our community. First, I'd like to express my gratitude to James Newsom, who has guided this process from the beginning. His commitment to ensuring a fair and legal process for all community members has been unwavering. His guidance and ability to navigate all aspects of holding this meeting as we are this year has been with great knowledge and care. Additionally, I'd like to thank Dulcie Madden for giving many hours to lead the public relations effort for this meeting. The hours she's contributed in drafting, coordinating, and executing mailers, posters, and e-blasts truly demonstrate how it takes a village. I would also like to thank the many people it takes to run our schools. Superintendent Steve Chamberlain, the leadership team, Bill Carrozza, Amy Dixon, Chris Kelly, Rebecca Gagnon, Becky Forrestal, Michelle Clark, Matt Stone, and Donna Bowe. Lastly, I want to thank our student representatives, Ella Whipp and Charlie DeCurtis. They've been an extraordinary team for the last year, attending almost all of our school board meetings, despite the many demands on their schedules, and taking the time to provide thoughtful comment and insight. We wish them the best of luck on their future plans. I think I can say with some certainty that none of us envisioned that we would be holding our annual school district meeting electronically. I have to say I've missed the opportunity to see and reconnect with friends and acquaintances as I do at our normal regular annual meeting. This community has shown we believe that together is always better, and that although we cannot be together in person, I'm confident that we are still together despite the need to hold this meeting electronically. I'm also confident that we come together even in this format to demonstrate our community's commitment to an exceptional school system. Our goal remains the same. We will achieve what we would as if we were in the gym, the opportunity for the community to be part of the process of passing an operating budget, contracts, and other articles that will provide an education that our community expects and enjoys. Our school's heart beats strong in this community. It brings us together. Residents of the town of Hopkinton and Kentucky, young and old, step up to support each other, and for that I am truly grateful. Today on Zoom, we work together to support the vision that strong schools contribute to a small community. So thank you all for being here, and we look forward to the process unfolding as the week goes on. And with that, I'd like to turn it back to James for introduction of the articles.
Thank you very much, Liz. With that, we will start with Article 1, which I would like to invite Rich Euston, Vice Chair of the Budget Committee, to come across. Steve, could you bring him across? Moto E5 play.
Yes, let me just share the screen and see how I can do that. Hmm. Make sure Rich gets up and then I'll share the screen.
Okay, Rich is here. If you could unmute yourself, Rich, I think we'll be ready to hear you.
Can you hear me now, sir?
Yes, we can. Thank you very much, Rich. The microphone is yours.
Thank you very much. My name is Rich Euston, and I serve as the vice chair on the budget committee. And the budget committee drafted a joint statement on Wednesday, March 4th, to be read at the meeting. So it has been my privilege to bring this to you tonight. The warrants that you will be voting on represent much work over the preceding months by the school board and the budget committee. The school district budget was accepted as presented to the budget committee, but not unanimously, and only after long and difficult debate. So too, this budget came to us in the form of a non-unanimous vote from the school board due to the increases involved. A minority on the budget committee proposed cutting an additional $423,000 from the school board's recommended amount of a 1.2 million budgetary increase over last year, should all warrants pass. This would reduce the increase to 862,000 or 6% increase. It must be noted that the school board had already cut $300,000 from the administrator's budget before being sent to us. If they had not, we would have been faced with a $1.5 million increase over last year. Two positions were cut, an elementary library assistant and an elementary numeracy assistant. The proponents of this cut noted it was needed to slow the increase in property taxes, estimated to be climbing 18% over the next 2 years, as two new bond payments, one from the school and a proposed one from the town, plus normal growth in the budgets. Large yearly tax increases, it was said, are making housing costs unaffordable, especially for the elderly and the working class. Strong public comments and private comments back up these points. Folks have noted that taxes are going up faster than their incomes, and they fear losing their homes. On the other side, it was said that the proposed cut of $423,000 may be equal to 4 or more positions being eliminated, on top of the 2 positions already cut by the school board. The administrator noted the schools have already been under a budget freeze for the last 2 years, and little reserve funds are available to buffer any costs. With 81% of the school's budget devoted to staffing, positions not regulated by state minimum standards would be the only place to absorb these cuts. Positions like foreign language, sports, elementary support staff, and those who teach choice high school classes would be at risk. English, math, or social studies may have to be increased in class size. In short, it was said that education would be impacted by such a cut. After much debate, 7 voted in favor and 3 against to accept the school board budget as written and sent it along to you. The budget committee wants you to know this was a difficult budget year with no easy answers. We are trying to balance a fiscally responsible budget with a good education. We encourage you to get out and talk to our state representative. Throughout the course of this budget season, all of us have been aware of the elephant in the room, and that is inadequate state funding, and that is putting pressure on our town's budget. Thank you. That's my statement.
Thank you very much, Rich, and thank you to the Budget Committee for all their hard work and dedication in service to town. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
With that, we will now move on to Article 2, and I would invite Rita Blanchard, the representative from the petitioners group, to speak to this article. So Steve, if you could move her over.
Hello.
Rita, welcome. Are you able to, can we hear you?
Good evening.
Thank you. The microphone is yours, Rita.
Thank you. Good evening. As you just heard, this is Rita Blanchard. Thank you for allowing me this time to speak. I have lived in town here for more than 30 years. I had requested that Article 2 be placed on the ballot this session to give a voice to our entire community. The fact that the current system has been in place for over 200 years, while it may have worked well for a century or so, it is rather outdated. People could check on their neighbors and their family when they came to town 100 years ago. And nowadays, we can check in with our families and friends in pretty much mobile society. And people are constrained with work requirements, whether that be a business owner or if that's just getting to their place of employment. The reality isn't that people are much more mobile. We are in constant contact and we need to make accommodations for that. So that's my reason for presenting the SB2 law, which gives the community the opportunity to see the proposed budget as well as a default budget. The default budget must be made public 30 days prior to the vote. If that proposed budget fails to pass from the community, the default budget is implemented. The default budget will contain contractual agreements and no more than a 3% increase. It will be the responsibility of the board to maintain a controlled budget, just like everybody does with their household budgets. And it does not necessarily mean there will be a zero budget increase. And folks, therein lies the profound difference between the current system and the proposed SB2 law format. Everything is explained and discussed, and the community is allowed to put amendments in place, unlike what is happening this year. This is kind of like SB2, but we're missing that critical component. So just remember, irregardless, if the community fails to pass that budget, either under the current system or under the SB2 law, the teachers' contracts have been, for years, a separate line item. That does not change when the SB2 law is implemented. The fact that the SB2 law allows confidential ballot voting and gives a citizen the ability to utilize an absentee ballot is embracing the American right for every citizen to have a vote. While recognizing this year's session is unlike any other, we all have a neighbor unable to vote, whether they've been quarantined or they're elderly or for some reason do not drive. I've lost my train of thought. Because the school, I requested that the school board or the town provide transportation for some of those individuals that I would normally drive to this meeting. And that wasn't an option. They were unable to offer safe transportation to the polls. It's shameful that people are denied their inalienable right to vote by our wonderful town. Whether inadvertently or on purpose, the result is the same. This is a historical year, and we can make it so everyone who wants to vote has the ability to do so. So the school board has proven to all of us that the community can be informed of the going-ons, whether it's via a live stream or a Zoom call like tonight, or with a community-wide mailer. They've done it, and they should continue to do so. Don't let this be a one-time event. So I urge you, we have the opportunity with an SB2 law to represent all of our citizens, all the business owners, all those with employment obligations, the elderly, the handicapped, literally everyone in town will have an option. And if I may add one more thing. So, by the way, the SB2 law does not have an impact on the teachers' contracts. The teachers' contracts for their insurance and paid leave and salary increases, that will be voted on with a separate line item that includes those major expenditures. So thank you for your time. Please vote yes on Article 2 for you, your neighbor, and the children. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Rita, for those thoughtful comments. With that, I will pass it over to Jim O'Brien for the school board response. Jim?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. First, I want to thank Ms. Blanchard for her comments and for bringing forward this article to the meeting for discussion. It's fair to say that the petitioners have the best interests and intentions of the community in mind and really do want to increase civic engagement and voter participation. That said, while we share those end goals, increase civic engagement and voter participation, we disagree on the impact that changing our form of governance will have on our district and our decision-making process. But no matter the outcome of the vote on this article, the school board wants to work with the petitioners, the voters, and all concerned citizens of Hopkinton on ways to bring more voices into the budget and decision-making process. As you can see on the warrant, the school board voted unanimously not to recommend this article. I'm going to do my best to outline the board's thinking on why I voted against this petition article. The Senate Bill 2 or SB2 process distorts the authority, purpose, and responsibility of the legislative body of our school board, and would be a dramatic change in the historic governance structure of our school community, one that would have real, and in the board's view, negative consequences for Hopkinton if it were to pass. This is not a change to be taken lightly. Our district governing structure consists of both executive and legislative functions. The executive function comprises the school board and by extension, the school administration who carry out the policies the board establishes. The legislative function, which approves budgets and oversees the executive, is comprised of you, the voters in town. That legislative duty is carried out annually here at the annual meeting where we gather to make decisions. Legislative bodies deliberate. They discuss, ask questions, debate, and finally use the information from those deliberations to make informed decisions. This is the process our district has followed since it was established, and that our town government has followed for over 2 centuries. SB2 removes this core function and responsibility from you, the voters. It fundamentally alters the legislative body's duties to deliberate and agree upon solutions to the matters that the executive function brings forward. These are not small matters. These are large, complicated issues that require explanation, thoughtful dialogue, exploration, and finally, informed decisions. All these functions are limited through SB2. Instead, decision-making is replaced with a yes-no ballot vote on issues as complex and consequential as the education of our children and multi-year contracts. There is a deliberative session baked into SB2. Changes can be made to budgets during that deliberative session by those in attendance, but it is the direct experience of many New Hampshire communities who have switched to an SB2 format show. Attendance at these deliberative sessions are very low, much lower than at annual meetings. For those who argue that our existing format of district meetings disenfranchises voters who are unable to attend or sit through an annual gathering, SB2 would not change that shortcoming. In fact, it may make matters worse. For those of us who are interested in debating and controlling the district budget, if we fail to attend the deliberative session, we will find that our ability to influence the outcome is severely restricted. By not attending the deliberative session, we forfeit the right to amend budgets or compromise to find a preferable solution. If we miss the deliberative session, we may not be exposed to a dialogue on the issues or having our questions answered from the school board, the administration, or our neighbors. Under SB2, once we go to cast our ballot, we can either vote for the proposed budget that in our view may be too high or too low, or have a default budget enacted that may be even less adequate. Further, final voting action is so far removed from whatever debate or discussion took place at the deliberative session people can lose track of what was discussed and why. And since most voters do not attend the deliberative session at all, there's a real possibility of confused and ill-informed voters. My experience is that most of us come to the annual meeting with an open mind, ready to listen to the presentations by the school board and budget committee, listen to the comments and questions brought forward by our neighbors. Those discussions shape our understanding of how decisions impact our schools and our wallets. It is fair to say that after attending an annual meeting at the high school gym, we are a better informed citizen leaving than we were entering that gym. This would be a real loss to our community. A further rationale for altering our governance structure seems to be an attempt to secure a no vote on budgets. Some argue that our annual meetings too easily pass budgets, and only if there is a secret ballot vote will school budgets be voted down. In my mind, getting to a no is not a legitimate reason to upend the governance structure of our school district. Getting to no is not a reason to remove the responsibility of voters to gather and deliberate on the future of our school district and community. Understanding and passing a budget is a core responsibility of all of us, the legislative body. Finally, while maybe a bit abstract and old-fashioned, I do think that we would miss the camaraderie of coming together. Annual meetings at their core is a celebration of community problem solving. I may leave annual meetings disagreeing with some outcomes, but I know that the issues have been debated at length, and my neighbors and I have had the opportunity to have our say. In Senate Bill 2, we may gain a little bit of efficiency, but we lose that community problem-solving piece, something that is not easily replicated in our society today. I agree that the town meeting form of government is not perfect. No system of democracy is. Perfection really isn't the goal. We should improve access so that more people can participate. We should improve how information is disseminated. If our current experience tells us anything, it is that we can better utilize technology to reach and engage more voters in a dialogue. While annual meeting isn't perfect, SB 2 brings its own set of real challenges and will fundamentally change how our district functions and the role that you, the voter, will play in this process. The school board voted unanimously that this change was not in the best interest of the district. The select board voted unanimously against the SB 2 petition article that will be on the warrant for similar reasons. I urge you to consider this when you cast your ballot on Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jim. While Jim was speaking, I noticed a lot of chat going back and forth there, and I would like to remind everyone that the chat is not an official part of the meeting. However, I did see some things this one time that I would like to invite Rita to come back as a panelist. Steve, if you could do that and respond to some of Jim's comments, just to get sort of a little bit more discussion on that if she is willing to do so.
I think I just promoted her, Mr. Newsom.
Okay.
I want to just check to see.
Yep. Rita, if you are willing, would you unmute yourself? And Rita, are you willing to respond? Do you have anything you'd like
to? That's a myth that has been perpetuated by multiple boards in this town over the years. And I'm talking decades, because the last time this SB 2 law was up for voting on was 2010. And while it won the public vote, it did not win by the 60% or 3/5, however you want to call it, that was needed to pass it. That's where all of you come into play, and your neighbors and your family, whoever's 18, get them registered tomorrow to vote. It's a myth perpetuated by many that the town meeting will go away. I'm trying to think of how to say this nicely. When Senate Bill 2 is passed, the misconception that while the town meeting is being changed to a deliberative session, the meeting itself stays the same. It stays exactly the same. The amendments are hashed out, they're changed. The only thing different is you have a week or so to go home, reflect on what you learned, discuss it with the people you care about, and then come back and make a well-informed decision. But the meeting format is essentially the same, except for you're not doing a rapid fire vote. You're getting the information and taking it home to reflect on and process. So that's incredibly misleading. I don't know if Jim responds or how this works.
No, I think Jim will have a chance to answer questions on Friday. But I just wanted to give you another opportunity because I know you were looking at that chat, which again, I'd like to remind people is not part of the regular meeting. So I'd ask kindly to keep the chatter to a minimum, just like we would at a regular meeting. You wouldn't be up there chirping and everything while somebody was speaking. So I'd appreciate the comments being saved until the end where they can become part of the public record in the minutes to this meeting.
I just want to add one more thing, if I may.
Go ahead.
This SB2 is going to give those oxygen-toting elderly people in our community the opportunity to vote. They can't come sit on those bleachers for 5 or 6 hours with their oxygen tank to vote. It's not even realistic to ask them to do that, or any other disabled person in our community. You guys have made it blatantly obvious to everybody we can do this via our computer. And granted, a lot of those people don't have computers, but you did a mailer, so you can probably continue doing those. And that way the whole community will be informed. It is not anyone's right to decide who is informed or uninformed in the voting process. That's all.
Thank you very much. And with that, I would like to just to remind everyone that Article 2 may not be amended by law. It has the required statutory language of the article, and it does require 60% of the vote to pass. Ballots are required to be open for 1 hour on SB2, and in our case, I will have the ballots open for 4 hours on Saturday, so we will not have a problem with that. So with that, I'd like to move on to Article 3, and so I will pass it over to Liz, who will handle the school board presentations and assigning who will be speaking for Articles 3 through 11. So Liz, it is your turn to unmute and proceed.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Moderator. I am going to be running through with the school board members the remaining articles that we have for this evening for presentation. At this point, I would like to introduce Bill Chapin. Bill is and was our budget committee representative for the board last year, was integral in the presentation of the school board budget to the budget committee, and he will be presenting Article 3, the operating budget. Bill?
Great, thank you, Liz. I will be presenting here, but before I go, James, I just want a special thanks out to you as moderator for all the work that you have done to get this meeting together. I just want to thank my fellow school board members and a real special heartfelt thanks to you, Liz. 12 years on this school board. You've been just such a rock and a really hardworking, terrific part of this school board. Steve Chamberlain, Michelle Clark, thank you so much for all the help you've done with my job and working with the budget committee. But my biggest thanks here, I'd like to send out to the budget committee itself. Thomas LaPoma, Ginny Haynes, Mark St. Kel, Jonathan Cohen, Rich Euston, Debbie Norris, Don Houston. You guys have been really terrific, respectful, committed. And in particular, I want to give out a special thanks to Janet Krasaniak. Janet has been, I was in 8th grade. Janet I was already realizing how much she was giving back to this community, and she continues to give back time and time again with her efforts. It is not easy learning new technologies, particularly in this year. She guides, she leads, she's respectful, and I think that carries down into the rest of that board. It is respectful of one another. We all really genuinely want what's absolutely best for this community. We may disagree from time to time, but it's a good working board. I think we all have work to do in the future, but I just want to thank that board and thank you, Janet, for all that you do. Okay, so starting in, I want to just do a quick overview of the district here. I'm going to be talking about the operating budget, but just a quick district overview. Generally speaking, we hear this. I hope it doesn't sound cliche, but it might come off. But a mission is always above all care. It is a very caring community we have here at the schools. We have 4 overarching goals, which is to ensure student learning, ensure best practices in all areas of operation, and to ensure high school plus for all students, to raise the bar and close the gap. I mean, we talk about it all the time. Raise the bar, close the gap. It's worth repeating. Our schools are very regulated. As we all know, they're regulated by federal law, state law. How do we see the progress we're doing, or how do we mark how well we are doing as a district? Well, we have some statewide assessments that we look at. 90% of our statewide assessments are above the state average. 78% of students who took the AP test, which is quite an accomplishment, scored a 3 or better. 3 is passing, that's out of 5. And 86% of students we're entering a 2 or 4-year vocational program post high school. We're always looking for opportunities for growth, though. We're always looking to meet the social and emotional needs of our students and continuing to develop curriculum. Steve, if you could flip to the next slide. So, it's a process. The budget that we create is a process. It starts in October, and it really doesn't end until we vote on it. But just to give everybody a little insight on the process, it is a lot of hours. It's a lot of meetings. It's a lot of work. Again, highlighting some key members. Norm Goebel went to a majority of the budget committee meetings, as well as the school board meetings. Janet, Don Euston, again, on the same way on the other side, getting to know as much information as you possibly can, so you can make a decision on this in terms of where we go. So it's roughly 30 meetings, approximately 400 hours of work. It starts in October. There's site-based, zero-based budget. You're using 3-year averages. You're looking to the buildings to determine what they're going to need for the future year. Leadership team meets with Steve. They tell, everyone, every building head indicates to Steve what they need. Okay. And then Steve gets back to them and what's manageable. Finally, Steve comes to the school board with his operating budget, talking about the revenue trust, and he gives a tiered reductions list, which is probably one of the hardest things that Steve has to do. At that school board meeting, when Steve was presenting his superintendent's budget to us, understanding, what the numbers look like, we really, the school board, it wasn't unanimous by any stretch, but we wanted to revise. There was a majority vote to revise, to drop the budget by $300,000. Understanding there would be some ramifications there, and I will get to those in a slide or two. Then, understanding all this, school board presents that to the budget committee, and as Rich said, this is very difficult. It was a very difficult budget season. A lot of deliberations, a lot of questions. Michelle and Steve doing a wonderful job trying to communicate as best they can information to the budget committee to help them make a decision. Then we went to a public hearing in which we presented this out to the public. and made our final vote with the budget committee. And then we get to this point now. So it's a lot of work. It's a full year process, but a lot goes into it. Okay. So the proposed operating budget for the fiscal year 2021 is $21,416,331. This is an increase of $863,286, or 4.46% increase from the fiscal year 2020 budget. Our budget is approximately, we always need to keep this in mind. Approximately 85% of this operating budget is staff costs, salaries, healthcare costs, and then the retirement contributions. So just to fully understand, this operating budget covers costs for programs and services. There's some technology upgrades that we have, and curriculum development support, which we're always working on. Three very vital things that we're looking for in our schools. Okay, next slide, Steve. So we're always asking, the budget committee is always asking, what are the major drivers? What are the things that really are making this budget different from last year's? What are the things that are increasing? So the healthcare was one. Obviously, we talk about this every year, but health insurance gets more and more expensive. But the guaranteed maximum rate of the GMR increased by 2.3% over last year. This is a variable rate and could very well increase in the next 6 months, but that number is one of our major drivers, which is $262,000. Rich talked a bit about the facility project bond. This is a little less than half of the first payment of that bond project. So that is a driver in this particular budget of $219,000. Now, I want everyone to bear in mind that that number we based on a bond that was going to be a 3.75% interest rate, and our hope is that actual rate will be lower. And I happen to think it's going to be significantly lower, but this is obviously the worst case. So that number on that project bond could very well go down. We'll just have to wait and see. It is not going to go up. And then we also have a situation where we have an out-of-district transportation responsibility, and we're legally mandated to provide special needs for this particular situation going forward in the next fiscal year. So those are the major drivers that we have. Steve, go on to the next one. Again, getting back to what Rich had said, the elephant in the room, right? Revenue has constantly, has been going down on average every year. So it's, you can see particularly around retirement contributions, we get next to no building aid, vocational tuition. It really has been tough. Revenue from the state has been tough. However, this particular year in this budget, and is reflected in this budget, we had a one-time $641,000 state adequacy grant, which is being used next year to defray operational costs. So a notable increase on our revenue is that state adequacy aid of $641,000. Notable decreases here, okay, is a fund balance, okay, which is $370,000. That we're not taking any money from we're not taking as much from the tax rate stabilization funds of $175,000. Not taking any out of special. We're not getting as much as special education aid from the state, which is $172,000. State property tax is $38,000, and Medicaid is $2,000. So as you can see, there's some increases and decreases, but overall, we're seeing a decrease of $110,000 in revenue that we're not receiving that we did the prior year. I will say, it's worth noting again that state adequacy aid had come in at 641,000. We are not taking as much from our reserve fund balances, okay, as we had in prior years, in anticipation for us not getting that 641,000 again. And you'll see that in the future slides here. Next one, Steve. So as I mentioned before, when the superintendent brought his budget to the school board had, we approved, it wasn't unanimous, as I had mentioned before. We had a 3-2 votes. We had a school board member who did not believe we had taken enough cuts, and we had one that thought we were taking too much. So we did have a $300,000 reduction to the superintendent's budget, which was quite a big deal. The ramifications for that, okay, and Rich had mentioned a couple of those. We did eliminate a 6th grade teacher, which was going to result in 3 sections of 6th grade instead of 4. Which is reducing social studies and science instruction. We did eliminate a elementary library media assistant. We eliminated a numeracy assistant, and we eliminated varsity assistant coaches, which, you know, from a safety issue is somewhat of a big deal. But again, as Rich had mentioned, this is a very difficult budget to go through. And, you know, hard choices needed to be made. And that gives you a little sense of what we're anticipating reducing with that $300,000 cut from the superintendent's budget. Okay, Steve, go to the next one. Now, you know, we're always trying to project ahead what our numbers are going to be, right? So as we get closer, we try to budget what we know, but given that it is May and not March or February when this thing went to the budget committee, we know a little bit more about our budgets than we did back in November. And there's some updated factors here. So the health insurance, which I had talked about earlier, the actual rate was determined to be lower than it was predicted back in November, but the district has already been informed of 2 plan changes that lessen the projected savings with more changes expected. It's very difficult. It's just a very difficult thing to try to predict what that number is going to be. However, heating fuel for next year is going to be lower than expected, with an estimated savings in next year's operating budget of $28,173. We did not anticipate an elevator repair at the high school, which has an estimated cost of $92,000. The other thing that we were looking at carefully was the kindergarten enrollment. There was some projections that our numbers were going to be as high as 75, maybe even 80 students. It looks like our student number is 58. I know we had been watching that number closely, and more on that will come with the contingency fund in a future article. But those are just some things that we know now that we didn't know back in November. Steve? So the total proposed operating budget here, all in, is $21,416,331, $21,416,331, and that's a tax impact of 75 cents per thousand. And as Rich had mentioned, the Hopkinton Budget Committee did support this article on a vote of 7-3. And thank you very much for your time. And thank everyone. I just want to thank everyone for the comments that they make. Finally, this is an important slide I want to show before I head off here. This is the cost per student of Hopkinton, and it compares us with 52 districts, 52 similar like districts, K through 12 districts, okay? And Hopkinton really spends per pupil about average of what, other, like districts do in the state. So it's just worth knowing that, as Rich had mentioned, we have a bit of a revenue problem here in town, but as far as the spending goes, we're right on line. And I there isn't anyone on this list, okay, that outperforms us in, in student performance. I mean, we have a wonderful, wonderful district. We have a high, we have high caliber education for an average cost. So thank you very much. Liz, you can take it back.
Great. Thank you so much, Bill, for your presentation. At this point, I'd like to move forward to present Article 4, which is the contract with the Hopkinton School District and the Hopkinton Educational Association. The HEA consists of about 100 faculty, including teachers, nurses, school counselors, and specialists. Our negotiations started last summer. As lead negotiator, I want to thank not only Matt Belanger and Steve Chamberlain and Michelle Clark and Bill Carrozza, but also the Hopkinton Education Association team for a very thorough and diligent process of negotiations, which took place over several months last year. Based on the feedback that the school board had received from the community in recent years, cost sharing of insurance premiums was a high priority in our negotiations of this contract. The Hopkinton School Board wants to thank the HEA for their interest in formalizing teacher attendance at student events such as ice cream socials and graduation. It's always our goal in the Hopkinton School District to attract and retain excellent teachers. And we feel that with this 3-year contract that we have negotiated, that we are going to continue to be able to do that. So 3 years of a contract included a 2.75% salary increase each year, with a cost sharing of the health insurance premium that would consist of 3% in the first year, 5% in the second year, and 7% in the third year, with all new hires starting July 1 of 2020, if the contract should pass, to start at a 7% cost share. The step up of cost sharing we felt was a way to work with the HEA to be able to develop a sort of steady increase of the cost share over the period of the contract, with the salary increases to ensure that our teachers were still going to be able to stay competitive with our regional competitors, our regional districts. The cost of the agreement over the 3 years: in year 1 is $307,000, in year 2 $315,000, in year 3 $308,000, with a tax impact of 40 cents per thousand. We are very grateful for the work that the HEA did with us to ensure the best for students in our district. Our teachers are in the mid-range in compensation relative to our regional competitors, and we're grateful for the work that we accomplished regarding 4 opportunities a year, 1 each quarter, for teachers to collaborate around curriculum and involvement in student events. The Hopkinton Budget Committee supported this article as well. Steve, if you would move on to the next one, thank you. Article 5 is an article that is in place for a special meeting if the Article 4 fails. It is only necessary if Article 4 fails. It saves costs associated with requesting a special meeting through the judicial system, and provides the school board an option and that does not require a special meeting for Article 4. Thank you, Steve. Next one. Article 6 is the Teamster Contract, Teamster Local 633 contract, the second of our 2 contracts that we have up for vote this year. Teamsters consists of our 8 full-time and 3 part-time employees that are custodians and maintenance workers, and an integral part of our school community, working in all of our buildings. The contract that we came to agreement with them, and we want to thank them very much for their work to negotiate this contract, is a 5-year contract. It has a 2 to 4% wage increase, and again, a health insurance premium cost sharing that was a priority for us as a district to incorporate, as we did with HEA, with 2% share starting in year 3, 4% in year 4, 6% in year 5. And we did establish a health insurance buyout of 70-30, where if a spouse has an insurance plan that they are on, and they opt to choose that plan, that there is a buyout option for them. The Budget Committee supported this article. It has a tax impact of 2 cents per thousand. This contract is again a 5-year contract, which is, we had a 5-year contract for the last one as well. Steve, next slide. Article 7 is a special meeting related to Article 6. So if Article 6 were to fail, the Article 7 would provide for the special meeting, which saves the costs associated with requesting a special meeting through the judicial system and provides the school board an option, and does not require a special meeting. Great, thank you, Steve. Article 8 is the contingency fund. So at this point, I am going to turn this over to Matt Belanger, who will present Article 8, the contingency fund.
Thank you very much, Liz. My 3-minute presentation is going to be cut to 1 since Bill did such a good job of talking through the some of the decisions that were made to pull items out of the operating budget. So just so folks have a little bit of context and background, the contingency fund, as you can read, but I'll read just in case. What this does is this gives the district some contingency funds that we can use for unexpected increases. These items get brought before the board and get voted on and approved. And if they are not used, then these funds go back to the town. And so for a little bit of context for the current budget year, we had put into contingency half of the cost for a kindergarten teacher, a 2nd grade teacher, which now that grade is at 82. So that was a good decision to move that forward, as well as science in the high school. And all of the funds from last year were not used. Not all of the funds were used, and a portion of those funds were returned. So for what we are asking for this year, $150,000. What this does is this reduces the risk associated with some of the high variable, high cost items, such as new staff, which is really what we're looking at this year. So the plan was for contingency to be used for a kindergarten teacher, a 2nd grade teacher, and a 6th grade teacher, if the numbers were to dictate and necessitate that. As Bill had shared, we don't believe that we will need that in kindergarten, but it's still, we're getting very close on the 2nd grade, where we have sections of 22, 22, 23 right now. We really, the academic leadership team does not feel like we can really stretch that much further and really deliver the quality education that we need. And in the 6th grade, we've got 22, 22, 21. We feel like we have a little bit more space there before we would need to activate the 4th section. But primarily within these grades, we have 4 teachers that teach. And in these, in 2nd and 6th grade, I'll let Steve correct me, but in those, I should know since I have children in both of those grades, there are 3 grade level teachers in those areas. So, so contingency will be used for those full-time. On the secondary in the high school, we're looking at science and family and consumer science sections. On the science side, what we do is we wait to build schedules, and then if it is needed, we're looking at a section of science to help those students meet the degree requirements. And our accreditor is pretty specific on the numbers of students that we can have in the science classroom, just from a safety perspective. So there's not a whole lot of wiggle room there. Again, if the schedule dictates it, we would activate that section, or I'm sorry, the board would activate that. And on the family and consumer side, for 2 years in a row, we've had to deny 20 some odd students the ability to take a specific class. And should the schedule require it, the board would like to put this into contingency as well. And should note, the Hopkinton Budget Committee does support this article. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matt. At this point, we will move on to Article 9, Repair and Maintenance, School District Building Repair and Maintenance Fund. And Norm Gupel, I will have you present Articles 9 and 10.
Thank you, Liz. I appreciate it. Our maintenance trust to raise $142,500 is part of our CIP for the district. Our current level right now is $192,000. We have about $259,000 planned work for this year. It is for class furnishing, oil tank, but our biggest priority will probably be the elevator at the high school that's having problems. The tax impact is 19 cents per 1,000, and the budget committee approves this article. Article number 10 is our special education trust. The school board would like to replenish the special education trust with $40,000. This would be 5 cents per 1,000. This is for unanticipated needs for transportation, and the budget committee approves this article. Back to you, Liz.
Great. Thank you very much, Norm. I appreciate it. At this point, we'll move on to Article 11, the Vehicle Replacement Trust, and I will turn it over to Jim O'Brien for presentation of that article.
Thanks, Liz. So this is our savings account to replace one of our 3 vehicles, or replace our 3 vehicles when the time comes to replace it. So this was authorized in March of 2010 for school district vehicle replacement. We are looking to put $15,000 into this trust account with the tax impact of about 2 cents per 1,000. We have a current balance of about $45,000 in this account, and so we use this to do the planned replacements. As you can see, our small bus we're looking to replace in fiscal year 21, and then we have additional replacements of vehicles over the course of time. So the Hopkinton Budget Committee supports this article. I believe it was unanimous, as does the school board. And with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to the moderator.
Thank you very much, all members of the school board, for those presentations. We appreciate it. With that, I'm going to open the public comment period. So I believe Steve needs to make me the host. Oh, he just did. Great. So I would invite the public to click the raise your hand icon to let me know that you have a comment, at which point in time I will unmute you and you can unmute yourself and make the comment. Just like at a regular meeting, I ask that you state your name and address in town at the beginning of your comments, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. We will be going through article by article to try to keep things as organized as possible. So we will be starting on Article 2 for the comments. And remember also that you will have a period of time following this meeting through noon on Thursday to provide additional comments by email to moderator@sau66.org or by voicemail at 746-1089. So with that, I will go to the participant list, and looks like Deb is the first one who I will unmute. Is Deb able to talk? Deb, okay. Let's try Stephanie Norris. Okay. Stephanie, are you able to unmute yourself at this point? Okay, Steve, I think I may pass the host back to you so you can help with this if that's okay.
Sure.
How do I do that now? I'm sorry.
I'll reclaim.
Okay, you are now the host, so.
We just tried Josh.
Hey, Steve, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Josh. Thank you very much.
Hey, guys, Josh Guttell, 344 Moraine Road. Question is, I understand that the presentation said that staff and everybody's still being paid. Are there any savings in the prior year's budget from being shut down from March through June?
Well, Josh, thank you very much for that question. I think that we're going to try to keep the questions and answers to Friday's session. And this public comment period is more just the straight comments at this point in time, with the questions coming on Friday. So if you could save that great question for Friday, we'd appreciate it.
Okay, am I still live here?
Yep.
Hey, the Concord Monitor had a quote about the voting procedure that was different from the mailing that went out to citizens. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
Can you comment on that?
Yes. The Concord Monitor article gave an appearance that for any article with an amendment, that you would only choose the one you wanted most, for example. That is incorrect. We request that you vote on each and every article. And I will go over that again on Friday's meeting as well. It's the Monitor article kind of confused the concepts of what voters will be voting on, which is everything, as opposed to what I as moderator will be counting, which is one motion at a time. So that is that, but we will get into that, I'm sure, more on Friday in the Q&A. But at this point, I'd really like to try to keep it to comments on SB2, Article 2, as we go through this. So Josh, do you have any other comments on SB2?
Oh, well, yeah, I was just confused that Rita Blanchard gave some arguments in favor of SB2, such as people needing to go to work and people not being able to get to the voting booth this time. But as a couple of other people have mentioned, SB2 has 2 voting incidents. So I don't really understand what the point of that was. There's twice as many times you have to get there to vote.
Okay, thank you very much. If we could go to, looks like Dennis is next in line.
Sure. Do you want me to turn it back over to you or keep at it?
If you don't mind, keep doing it this way. I think this will work. I just don't want to have to go through and
no problem
it again. We've had enough technical difficulties for one day.
I'm with you.
Okay, so Dennis.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is the right point, but since we were just looking at Article, I guess 11 relating to vehicles, I'm curious, are any of these vehicles in active use at present?
No, we're going to touch on Article 11 later on. We're going through the articles one by one, and we're starting with Article 2.
Ah, very good.
So we'll get you back on Article 11 if you're staying around. Thanks. So it looks like Bonnie is next up for a comment on Article 2.
So it says Bonnie is using an older version of Zoom. I got to promote her to panelist first. So just give me a second.
Okay.
So she should jump up any second.
Okay.
Bonnie, are you there?
Yes. All right. I didn't realize we were doing Article 2, but my question is, how do you make an amendment to an article without someone there to second your what you want to amend?
In this format, I will be accepting motions, and then at the end, the warrant in its entirety will be moved and seconded with motions to amend. That's completely laid out. The process for amendments are then laid out in the rules that have been distributed. And we'll go over that again on Friday, and please make comments to me via email or voicemail with those suggested amendments as we go through.
And what is the time frame of that for the amendments?
Through Thursday at noon.
All right, thank you.
Yep. So the next one is Ken. Okay, Ken, looks like you should be good to go.
Yep, I am good to go. So actually, none of your rules, and I have read your mailer, 12-page mailer, which was extremely repetitive, but I have read it from back to front numerous times. None of them address the seconding. And if you're going to address that on Friday night, that's past the time to make amendments. So that would be somewhat superfluous, I would think.
Well, these are the rules that I have proposed, which is pursuant to RSA 40:4, where the moderator is able to propose rules. However, my rules are able to be overturned. If you do not like my rules, the question 1 on the ballot will be to whether or not to accept or reject the rules. So if you want to overrule my decisions, vote no on that first question, and that's how to do it.
I understand, and I'm very much in favor of this meeting, but to your previous questioner, you said she asked how you were supposed to second an amendment, and you said that would be addressed on Friday night, but that's past the deadline to put in an amendment.
Seconds on individual motions, I will not be requiring.
So there you go. That's clarification.
Okay.
Okay, and my second point, that just if I have the 30
I'm sorry,
seconds.
is it regarding Article 2?
It is not.
Can we wait until we get to other comment periods to discuss this then? Because I'd like
Absolutely.
Article 2 first.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
And Mr. Moderator, for the minutes, can we have the name and address of the speakers for Laura so she can write that down in the minutes?
Yes, I will. Thank you for reminding me to include names and addresses for these.
Am I still on?
Yes, Ken, you are.
Yep, Ken Wasson, Clark Lane.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Okay, seeing no other hands for Article 2, let's open up hands for Article 3, the budget, and they are starting up. So the first one would be Alice Coda is the name on my screen. And just a quick reminder to state your name and address for the records.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, it's actually Arnold Coda, and I am using Alice Coda's computer.
Okay.
Oh, in any event, my address is 400 Gould Hill Road here in Hopkinton. Now, with respect to Senate Bill 2, can you tell me approximately, if not exactly, how many registered voters we have in Hopkinton?
As I've said several times, I'd really appreciate the questions to be saved until Friday.
Okay, well, I'll make a comment, but absent my...
And we've moved on to Article 3 at this point, I think.
Well, can I be given a little latitude to speak on Article 2?
I will allow it, yes.
Thank you. Okay, in any event, it strikes me that with SB 2 being on both ballots, the school ballot and the town ballot, I'm sorry, I guess this is a question, so I'll pose it as a statement. It strikes me that we may have a problem if it is passed on one side, but not on the other. So having made that comment, I guess we'll allow you to go on to Article 3.
Great. Do you have something on Article 3 or not?
I do.
Okay, Arnold, we'll start Article 3 with you then. Thank you.
Okay. With respect to the elevator at the middle and high school, cost $92,400. I guess I have to make a statement. I should think that that would be included in this $10 million bond that was passed last year. Period. End of my comments on Article 3.
Okay, thank you very much. Staying on Article 3, looks like Josh is up.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yep.
Josh Katef, Moran Road. So my comment is that if we're supposed to propose amendments before Friday, I think it's important to know how much the savings from being closed for 3 months is in the prior year's budget.
Steve, do you have that number handy?
So we're taking questions, sure. So
just this one, I'd really like not to, but I do
okay.
think that, on the budget, which I do think the amendments will come in on. This one I will allow.
Sure. So can you hear me, Mr. Moderator? So the question is about savings due to the remote learning. Yes, there are additional savings. We had our first financial during the pandemic, and we have some savings there. Remember, the first notice of emergency order was to temporarily through May 4th. And so we adjusted some of our revenues and expenditures for that short term. Now that it's extended to the year, there'll be another financial at May 21st, but we've increased our fund balance beyond what we anticipated because of the closure. So things we are saving, we're saving some money from like trips, transportation. We're saving some for professional learning because some of that is reduced. We also have reduced revenue because we're not having any revenue come in for food service. But Josh, we are monitoring and taking a look at our expenditures over time. And as this goes further, we'll have more savings due to the forced closure.
Is that expected to be disclosed to the citizens at any point?
Yeah.
To quantify that?
Our financial statements are complete and they're public, and we talk about them at usually it's the second school board meeting. So the May 21st school board meeting will be the next financial under the pandemic. And there will be changes in revenues, changes in expenditures, and our unreserved fund balance is estimated at that time. But yes, all of this is done through a financial statement that is presented to the board and discussed in public.
Sorry, Steve, just so I don't have to waste your time again on Friday. This will not be disclosed before Friday, is that correct?
We don't, right now it's just through May 12th. So we are looking at the last month. So we can tell you how much that we've done through the last financial and updates, but it doesn't become formal until the next financial is presented to the board. May 21st is our next financial.
Okay,
we can
thank
give
you
an
very
update.
much. Staying with Article 3 as the subject, it looks like Rita has her hand up.
Rita, let's see. Where's Rita? Oh, there it is.
Oh, I unraised my hand too slowly, I guess. I initially was on Durant Article 2 to get a rebuttal to Josh, but I guess somehow I was missed.
Okay.
But on this, I was going to ask why we don't have actual numbers, and aren't we being remiss in not having those for our amendments? So I don't actually have a question. I just have that comment.
That's perfect. This is for comments. Thank you very much. Ken is back up on Article. Actually, hold on one second on Ken. I'm going to let David DiPiano speak because he has not been up to the microphone yet. So, David.
You guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Dave DiPiano, 68 Brookwood Lane. The statement / question is, we're hearing from other citizens. We're being asked to vote on a budget, and we know that there may be some savings, but we can't quantify them, at least from the remainder from this school year. The question is also on, are we expecting any changes to the budget for next year based off of potential additional closures or changes to budget since COVID-19 has happened?
Thank you for that comment. We will again be answering questions on Friday. So we will move on, and Ken Wasson is next up. Ken, go ahead.
Yep, sorry, I had to unmute myself. I didn't.
That's
realize.
okay.
Yeah, Ken Wasson, Clark Lane. The whole thing on the budget, and I said this last year in the live meeting, and I think there's a lot of scare tactics that go on, and this, that, and the other thing's going to have to be cut. And the one that kind of sticks in my side is the fact that assistant coaches are going to be cut from varsity sports, which is a safety issue. And having played varsity sports through both secondary and post-secondary school my whole life, I'm not sure what the safety issue is there. But I think that in addition to that, I think that the stipend that is paid to an assistant varsity coach on a $21 million budget is tremendously insignificant. I don't know the number, but that's my belief. And I believe that we are throwing out that safety word because that always makes everybody get excited, and it's fear mongering. And I'm very sad that we have resorted to that. That's my comment. Thank you for my time.
Okay, thank you very much. I will go with Steve Reddy as next. He has not had a chance to speak yet. Steve.
James, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead.
Okay. I just want to say that when a superintendent and his staff presents a budget and then the school board, for their own reasons, which are good reasons, cuts $300,000 out of that budget, you can't expect there not to be changes to personnel, especially when most of your budget goes to staff costs. So just to address the previous comment, unfortunately, there's been a lot of heat, not a lot of light about this year's budget. When you actually peel back the numbers, when you subtract out the money that's being put in for the first payment on this year's bond, the increase to the budget is really about the rate of inflation. On the average house in Hopkinton, it's a little over $40 a month. And I just want people to keep the perspective when they're looking at these budget numbers to realize that the amount of the quality of the education that we receive in Hopkinton for the amount of money we spend, as was pointed out on one of the earlier slides, is just amazing. And it's to the credit of the superintendent, the administration, the teachers who we have seen rise to the occasion over the last couple of months, and to our volunteer school board and our budget committee. And thank you, everybody.
Thank you for the comment. We will go next to Gail Cornell.
Hello?
Yes, Gail, go ahead.
Gail Cornell, 21 Old Henniker Road. My comment is that I did not see any reflection in Article 3 of the current economic hardship many people are suffering due to COVID-19. And I would like to have that discussed further as it relates to budget increases when there are many people who have very high property tax bills coming up, but are currently out of work. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. I'm sure that will be discussed on Friday, as will some of these other comments and issues that people are bringing up, and it's great to hear. Next, I will go to Sabrina Dunlap. Sabrina, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Thank you all for doing everything you're doing during this sort of surreal and unprecedented time. I know this is very difficult, and I just wanted to say that I think this budget, though the cuts are difficult, this is a compromise budget, and I think it is the best we're going to do to balance the needs of the schools with the tax burden. And I won't dwell on this, others have already talked about it, but the state of New Hampshire has neglected public school funding for decades, and that makes this really, really hard. There's a lot of work to be done in the state to address the funding, but the solution to our problems is not to cut the school budget in a way that harms students and teachers. And, this is a compromise. No one is 100% satisfied, but sacrifices are made for the greater good to get to an acceptable place. And I think we've gotten to that place. We're incredibly lucky to live in a town with such, amazing schools, amazing teachers and administrators. and a community that cares about them. And I encourage everyone to vote to support this budget because I really think, you know, it got us to a place where we need to be. So thank you.
Thank you very much. The next first-time speaker will be Rob Nadeau.
You guys hear me?
Go ahead, Rob.
I just wanted to make a comment on the assistant coach suggestion in terms of it being a safety issue. As a longtime coach in Hopkinton, I think the reference there is about predominantly when we travel, but it also could occur at a practice. And I've been away at meets where I've had a student with a medical situation occur that I would need to attend to as the head coach. And without having an assistant coach there, I've got 30 some odd students who don't have another adult to look to. So in that way, it certainly is a safety issue beyond all of the merits that assistant coaches bring to sports teams. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. The next first-time speaker will be Ron Noyes. So Ron, yep, go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you, James. Yeah, first thing I'd just like to say in the public record, Jim, that is a sweet beard, my friend. Looks
Ron,
good.
Quickly state your name and address as well for the record. Thanks.
Yes. Ron Noyes, 849 Main Street. And so the only second thing that I'd like to say is that there are a lot of people struggling here in town. And at the federal level, there has been a lot of accommodations made. At the federal and state level, even, there have also been a lot of rapid changes and accommodations, and it just doesn't seem like there are any happening on our local level in our town. Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be Rebecca Whitley.
Hi
Go
there.
ahead, Rebecca. Yep.
There.
Go ahead.
Okay, my name is Becky Whitley. I live on Turnberry Lane. Thanks so much to all the folks that put this meeting together. It was really yeoman's work to get this up and running. So thanks so much for that, and for the board for their patience in running this meeting. So thanks so much. I think I just wanted to reiterate the fact that I agree that this proposed budget is already very lean and it's a compromise budget. There are folks that will be losing their jobs under this budget. There are no other places to cut, and any further cuts I think will have dramatic results on staff and children. The proposed budget is very conservative and with both revenue and cost estimates. I also want to encourage everyone in town to demand better options from the state legislature and from the corner office, our governor, for how we fund public education in New Hampshire. The current structure for funding public education in New Hampshire is unsustainable. We can and must protect local property taxpayers and support our cities and towns in educating our children. New Hampshire has been struggling with education funding for decades, and I know we can do better, but I support the current budget as proposed. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We will next go to Arnold Coda.
You meant Alice, right?
Yes, that's the one. So if Arnold unmutes himself.
And I don't know if people want to drop their hands if they don't want to speak. The hands are still up, so that can be confusing.
Okay.
Yep. It says temporarily unmuted.
Okay. Oh, I guess Arnold, are you trying to speak? You'll need to unmute yourself if you are. Otherwise, we'll move to the next hand up. Maybe the hand just didn't get dropped. Okay, let's move on to Sarah Dustin. Go ahead, Sarah.
Thank you so much for the presentations. They've been really informative. Sarah Matson-Dustin. I live on Dustin Road. Over the past decade or so that I've been coming to the school district meetings, I've often heard the decisions that we have to make framed in terms of wants versus needs. And I just wanted to point out that this year's budget contemplates that our elementary school libraries will no longer be able to open during the entire school day. And it's kind of astonishing to me, frankly, that we're at the point where having the libraries open, the academic hearts of our building open, is something that we're considering a want. I think there's real sacrifice in this budget, and I would encourage people not to support any additional cuts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's see, it looks like we still have a couple of hands up, but they're all repeat speakers. So before we start calling through them, I would just ask, if you have spoken and are all set, then please lower your hand through the raise your hand function so that we have one less thing to confuse ourselves with. And in the meantime, a first-time speaker on this, Patty McMillan, we will go to you. If you unmute yourself, Patty. Yep, go ahead.
This is Rick McMillan on Patty's phone. And I can't swallow this budget in that in all the years we've been here, having been through the school and everything else, it's just, this is no longer sustainable by many people here. So although I've heard comments about people possibly not getting a raise or maybe somebody losing a job, I will tell you right now, there are a number of people trying to pay taxes who don't even have a job. This is the taxpayers of this town. So if you want them to leave, then stay at it. A lot of this budget is the result of poor management in many years prior to this. I've seen it year after year after year. We would not be in this predicament had management handled the budget better in prior years. That's my comment.
Thank you. Rob and Catherine Mateo. Go ahead.
Yes, Rob and Catherine Mateo, Catherine Matteo speaking from 108 Park Ave. I have two kids in the school, one in the high school and one at Maple Street. And I still think that we are all making really hard decisions right now in this situation. And I don't think this is sustainable. I think everybody has to make hard decisions, and to tell someone in the town that, you know, is choosing whether or not they should pay for their medication or their taxes, that $40 a month, you know, is fine and it's okay. I don't think that's okay. And I think you do have to love your neighbor, and part of that is keeping this sustainable. And I don't support the increases. I don't think it's sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now go to Candy Garvin. Go ahead, Candy.
Hi, Candy Garvin, 515 Boundtree Road. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all the work that you've all done. So I agree with Catherine. I've been in town for 48.5 years. I agree with those people who have said it's our state problem and the elephant is in the middle of the room. However, if we can't get our state people to do what we need to do, and that's a whole other section, you all have stepped up. You communicated, you've met, you've listened respectfully, you've figured out how to educate the kids in this community by computer. Whoa! So that being said, am I to understand that you're really looking for an amendment in an amount for article number 3? And if so, I would like to make one. And please don't take it personally, any of you. I have 2 grandchildren who have been welcomed by this community, that their dad, their aunt, and their father came to school here. Their dad and their aunt couldn't afford to come back here to live because of taxes. Our son died. Cheryl Lee, our wonderful daughter-in-law, was able to purchase a really cute house, and the kids are now being educated here. We support them as a family, but Hopkinton as a community, including the school community, I couldn't ask for better. But we're going to be paying taxes. So this would be my amendment. I would like to amend the budget down by $416,331. So it would be making it $21 million. With the hope that any monies that are going to be coming back to the taxpayer would be going back to help fund the school. We don't know that amount. I appreciate that you can't figure that out, or you can't give it to us because you have to have meetings. So that would be my amendment.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you all. And Jim, I still like your beard.
Just a quick reminder, if you've already spoken and have nothing more to add, if you could lower your hands, that would be great. And so we will go to Dennis, who still has his hand up. Dennis.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Moderator, for recognizing me. Quick question and a comment. First, a question. So, many for-profit businesses that are trying to struggle with the current economic situation, where the building is empty, they're looking to find other ways to generate revenue from an otherwise empty building. What presently is the school building being used for, and has the school board looked at any way to defray some of its expenses by finding some way to generate revenues from the presumably large empty building that we now have?
Okay, and what additional comment did you have? It sounded like you said you had two.
Oh, I think the comment is largely superfluous, but the discussion about sustainability, any lifestyle is sustainable if someone else is paying it for you. Within the town, it's very simple. I think it was Oscar Wilde who had a much better quip about this than I won't relate to you, but suffice to say, if your expenses exceed your income, you're going to be poor. It's that simple.
Okay, thank you very much. We will go back to Ken.
Sorry, forget that I have to unmute myself every time I talk. Apparently, I talk too much. You'd think I'd figure that out by now. Ken Wasson, Clark Lane. 2 points, and one is that one of the issues is that we have seniors and a lot of people on fixed income. Go ahead and sit back, because it could be a while. We have a lot of seniors and people that are on fixed incomes here who paying their tax bill is a bigger issue than donating their time and reaching out to the community. And if we're talking about shutting down libraries, I have several senior friends who read extensively and would be thrilled to go to that library and read to children, or to man the library, or do whatever it is at whatever school it is on a volunteer basis, and make that library what it needs to be, and probably improve that library, because they are senior people that have a vast array of knowledge. Comment 1. Comment 2. There are numerous people, including Ron Nato, who continues to talk about the fact that we can go to the state and get continued state funding, and we need more state funding. The only way the state gets money is taxes. That's the only way any government entity gets taxes. So if we're going to go to the state and get taxes, they're going to increase your state taxes, and that's only going to increase your taxes. So the bottom line is, whoever I am talking to, is going to pay the bill, whether it is to the city of, or the town of Hopkinton, or the state of New Hampshire. You're going to pay the bill. So you've got to figure out what you're going to do to reduce the costs, not increase the revenue, because the revenue comes from you. Thank you for my time. And I would like to say thank you for putting together this meeting, because I actually think it's pretty cool that we are able to do this. And I wish we could do this with our select board meetings, and our school board meetings would make them much more accessible.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Looks like Jim would like to say something, or he's just waving for fun. Go ahead, Jim.
Maybe a little bit of both. No, that last comment, I just wanted to say to Ken and to everybody else that we do our meetings, both the select board and the school board are conducting our meetings via Zoom. So you can find the information on the district website, but we would encourage everyone who is finding this format to be useful to join us during our regular meetings, because we do find that there's more engagement and people have an easier time engaging on Zoom. So I just want to throw that out there. Thanks, James.
Thank you, Jim. With that, we will go over to Bob Lepre.
Hi, folks. I'm Bob Lepre at Highland Ave. I realize we're in unique times, and this meeting, I think, is the bare minimum we can get to have any kind of dialogue on the issue at hand, our budget, and et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not really happy with the fact that we are not able to have any kind of real back and forth dialogue, either with you, Jim, or members of the board. And I think you have to understand that part of the value of a town meeting or a school meeting is to have the back and forth dialogue in real time. So the fact that you're putting off all this commentary and discussion to emails that you're going to present on Friday, I find to be not adequate. And I think legally,
Friday will also be a live Q&A during the public comment period on Friday as well.
Well, that's fine. Okay, what I want to tell you is this is a meeting, and any communication you get from the citizens by email or voicemail are part of the public record and have to be made available by Friday, so we know what our fellow citizens have been saying to you. I don't want to hear just your summary. I want to be able to read the whole thing. You can summarize, that's fine, but be sure you understand that this is part of the public record and it has to be available in a truly timely manner, which means in time for us to see it before the Friday meeting.
We will be doing our best to do that, yes.
Well, I think it's more than best. It's a statutory requirement. You're very well aware of the open meetings laws, and that's what this is. And it particularly pertains to emails. Okay. All right, and so anyway, I think we're muddling through this, and I'm not casting any kind of suspicion, but I think we really have to be very careful to make sure this is extremely open to everybody to be able to peruse. So that's my comment.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, we are back to Arnold/Alice Coda.
Yep, it's Arnold Coda.
Go ahead, Arnold.
Okay. Let me see, just a few more comments here. First of all, and I would have been saying this anyhow, even if several speakers before me have not said it. I don't favor this budget for the fact, several facts actually, but the first one is because of the economic condition in which we find ourselves, not just in Hopkinton, not just in New Hampshire, and well beyond that nationally. There is no real path as to how quickly we will recover economically. And I think therefore the load on all of the taxpayers in this town, whether or not they have the funds to pay the taxes or they don't, is extraordinary. And I really think that this is a time when we need to put full stop on a budget increase, full stop on both the teacher new contract and the new contract for the custodians. If we think for a moment only about the businesses within New Hampshire, but let's look at the Concord area that have closed per order of the governor. And I have no problem with the directives that Governor Sununu has issued. Some of those will never reopen, undoubtedly, because of their size. They are small businesses. And I think that we need to look at ourselves as if we are a business. So we are a business, but the difference is this business gets paid from the public purse. And I think that it's time to pull the drawstrings on the public purse, at least for a year. So that's that particular comment. But in line with that, I've done some research with respect to Social Security payments. And increasingly, I'm seeing comments from various people within the federal government that there may well not be a COLA increase for Social Security recipients next year because of the way that the Consumer Price Index is calculated. So among the stuff that I pulled out, and I will have to tell you that this was a quick and dirty search that I did. Since 2000, Social Security COLAs have increased benefits by, that means the payments to Social Security recipients, by only 53%. But the price that retirees pay typically for the goods and services has grown by almost 99, just over 99%. That's a huge discrepancy. I don't want to get into a description of what's in the Consumer Price Index, but it distinctly works against Social Security recipients. So I think really that it is time for us to put a hiatus on further increases within the budget. I support the comments that other people have made. I recognize education as being valuable. It certainly is. And I don't deny that at all. I really believe, and having been in positions over several years where I had to make budget cuts where I was working, I know that it can be done. And so I urge you all to cut this budget increase and bring it back to just a flat, no increase budget, and no teacher, new contract, no custodial, new contract. And for now, on Article 3, those are my comments.
Thank you very much. Devin Chafee. If you unmute yourself, I think. Devin? Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, James. Thank you. Devin Chafee, 483 Briar Hill Road. And thank you for all the work that you've put into making this meeting come together. I know it has taken an incredible amount of work, all of you, and all of the rest of the members of our community who made this happen. And I've just been thinking about some of the comments that have been made about the strain that the COVID-19 pandemic has put on our communities. And when I look at that and I see the strain that it's put on our town, I really see the strain that it's put on our school system, the strain that it's put on our educators to go above and beyond, and the strain that it's put on our families and our children. And to me, as I'm looking forward to the next year and what our community is really going to need, I'm seeing a community of children that are really going to need our support, and that support really needs to be given through strong funding of our schools, schools that are going to be dealing with trying to bring children up to where they need to be, and while starting in very difficult circumstances. So to me, in this current situation, we need to be thinking more than ever about making sure that we're investing in the schools. And I understand this is a compromised budget. I understand that cuts have been made. I know I personally am most concerned about those students that are going to be in greatest need going into the future school year, kids that are going to need those, the literacy and numeracy support going forward to be able to get where they need to be in order to be successful. So that's just my 2 cents as to now more than ever during this pandemic, why our community really needs to come together, needs to support our schools, and needs to support this reasonable budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, one hand just came up, so we'll go to Ron.
Hi, James. Thank you.
Yep. Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, something with that last comment just really hit home with me, because it is about the kids. I've got 2 kids in the system, and in September, my youngest, Stark, will be entering as well. And when I think about the overall community of children, I don't think the silver bullet is to spend more. If I think about those families that are at home trying to figure out where their electric bill is going to come from or their food is going to come from, that has a very big impact on children. And I'm saying this is someone who has kids in the school and one more on the way. And this doesn't in no way diminish the quality of work that's being done. But it does come down to the simple fact that when it comes to kids, increasing spending and taxation on people who are already overburdened is not the only answer. Thank you.
Thank you. David DiPiano. Go ahead, David.
Hello there. Again, 68 Brookwood Lane. Just to reiterate the prior two callers, I think it's an important concept people have mentioned, right? I mean, we're providing, a lot of us parents, remote support for our children, and we're providing exactly that time. And I think as we think of the budget, I think we need as citizens to read through it. We need to be considerate of others in town about increasing our own taxes. But I think we also need to be asking for the people responsible for our education to give that time, right? I mean, to ask teachers to provide a little bit more time doesn't necessarily need to cost more. I think if this remote learning has taught us anything, we need to think a little bit differently. And that's all I would ask is we look to a budget, we pass something that's responsible, but also know that there's going to need to be adjustments when we return, if we return in the fall, and that can and may very well have budgetary impact of what we're about to pass or trying to pass on Saturday.
Thank you. Steve Reddy.
Hey, Jim. Jim?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. I just want to say, and I know there's a lot of people that they tune into the budget debate. I would urge people to go onto the hopkintonschools.org website. There's a ton of information about the whole budgeting process that we've gone through the last few months. Schools have a very high percentage of fixed costs. So when you start talking about cutting budgets or pinning budgets to last year's number, which is kind of an artificial concept. With schools, you're talking about directly reducing the level of staff and teachers, which directly affects the education of the children. And I would urge people, I know there's a lot of discussion about this, but just to go back and look at those documents, look at those meetings and study it for yourself. As far as the elderly in the community, and I'm one of those people that actually has elderly relatives in the community. Our currently elderly exemption exempts on the average home the first 22% of your taxable value. And at this, when we ever get to the town meeting, there's an option to double that elderly exemption. So I do feel that we are taking care of the elderly people in our community and also trying to take care of the students in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further hands on Article 3, we're going to go to Article 4, which, if memory serves, is the teacher's contract. Any comments on the teacher's contract? Rita. Go ahead.
I'm back. I had seen an email that stated if this contract was voted down by the town citizens, that the teachers would lose their health care and there might be a few jobs lost. I'm in a position where it's incredibly sad people are losing their jobs, but they're losing their jobs across the board. And I personally do not feel responsible for people who do not live in our town and have been vocal about not living here because of the tax burden. So if that needs to be adjusted somehow or another with a pink slip, then so be it. That's the life we're living right now. There are people in this town unemployed who have not received a single unemployment check. So I just want to make sure this is part of the public record that yes, people will lose jobs. If they lose their insurance, that's up to them. But it's not my responsibility or my neighbors just because we happen to like these teachers and staff to keep them on the payroll. That's not how you run a business.
Thank you. Dennis. And just a quick reminder to state your name and address as we go through these comments. Thank you. Dennis, go ahead.
Dennis Goddard, Pennacook Road. I'm hearing a lot of concern about the possibility that we might lose teachers because they could get a much better contract. I think that's entirely misplaced given the current economic reality, given that pretty much every school district across the country is facing a sharp reduction just in the amount of money that the taxpayers have, independent of the tax rate. Just the sheer volume is sharply reduced. I don't see there's any way to avoid a glut of teachers as responsible municipal organizations across the country lay teachers off to deal with economic realities. If anything, I would be inclined to pick up some teachers at a really, really reduced rate about 3-4 months from now. Yeah, that's my input.
Okay, thank you very much. We will move to Andrew. Okay, Andrew, if you unmute yourself.
Sorry,
okay.
I think am I unmuted?
Yes.
Okay, this is Andrea, my husband's computer. I live at 331 Briar Hill Road.
And the last name too, please?
Kane, K-A-N-E.
Thank you.
Full disclosure, I work as an IA in the school system. I just want to speak in support of how hard the teachers work. I'm not sure how many more kids you want to pack into the classroom when you start cutting jobs, but they work so hard and there's nothing wasted that I've ever seen in the school. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Robert Pierce.
Now, I believe you can hear me now.
Yes.
Okay. Rob Pierce, I live on Dolly Road. It's P-E-A-R-C-E if you need it for the minutes. At any rate, I just want to say that I believe you've presented a very lean budget. And in fact, I'm slightly concerned with how lean it is, but I appreciate your efforts and what you've done. And I want to speak to how much I personally have appreciated the way that our schools have pulled through this moment, this time that we're still in, managing to organize and set up curriculum for online education and remote learning quickly and very effectively, in my opinion, when I know that they weren't originally designed to do that. And I think these teachers, I think it's an invaluable service for the public. I have 2 students, one in middle school, one in Maple Street School, but it's invaluable. And the idea of losing more teachers or not being, and I appreciate that we're competitive with similarly taxed schools and get a lot of bang for our buck, so to speak. We get a lot of value for a relatively effective way of doing that. So I appreciate all of that and want to emphasize my support for the budget you've presented. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments for the teacher's contract? Liz.
Thanks, James. I just think it's important. I'd like to clarify something that Rita mentioned up front with the contract, and only because I want to make sure that it's clear what happens if the teacher's contract does not pass. First of all, it's a thumbs up, thumbs down vote. Cannot be amended, but I believe probably the email there or the communication she may be referring to had more to do with what would happen if we did not have this meeting take place prior to the July 1 start of the school's fiscal year. But if the contract does not pass, essentially the teachers, the HEA the HEA would not change. They would stay on the same contract that they have currently, which means that they will keep their insurance as it is. What we lose with that, obviously, is the benefit of what we have negotiated for this contract. So it's not they will lose insurance on July 1. I don't want, that's a scare tactic. I don't want people to believe that that's the case. It is that the contract will stay as it is right now, and then the teams will go back to the table next year to renegotiate.
Thank you for that clarification. It's Patty McMillan, but I'm not sure if that's Mr. McMillan or not. So go ahead.
Yeah, it is. It's Rick again.
Okay, Rick.
Having spent a number of years in college hoping to be an educator, which I never became, one of the main reasons I went there was because the teachers that I had at Hopkinton, don't get me wrong, I had a great education then, and I feel it's a good system now. Many of them that had been there many, many years, level of experience, were much less interesting and made me much less enthusiastic about the courses and the classes that I was in. Many of the people that inspired me were young, new teachers with new ideas and freshly coming in with just great enthusiasm and totally all about the kids and about education. So the whole concept to me of experience, and don't get me wrong, the older I get, the more value I place on experience, but the whole concept that younger teachers that may be less money are not as valuable as older experienced teachers, I think there's a nice mix there. And I would personally like to see the teachers at the high school and at all levels be a nice mix of some new enthusiastic teachers with new ideas and new concepts and more enthusiasm than some of the people that have been teaching for 30 years. And I'm not saying that all people that have been teaching for 30 years are that way, but I think a mix would be just fine. And we may be able to get some younger, less expensive teachers that can educate our children very well. My second comment is that I don't believe that there's any law, and I could be wrong, against anybody that really, really loves the district and is feeling no pressure in taxes at this point in their lives. There's nothing that prohibits them from donating money to the school district, as far as I know. And if there were a mere 500 people out of the entire town that donated $1,000, I think that's $500,000, and that would greatly help the budget. That's all I have.
Thank you. Andrew. Go ahead.
It's Andrea again.
Sorry.
I don't know what.
I'm sorry, could you just state your name and
oh, sorry, Andrea Kane, Kane, 331 Briar Hill Road. I just want to say that we've got a lot of teachers who do have a lot of experience. I don't think it's fair to say, oh, you've been here for 20 years, you're expensive, you got to go. That seems crazy to me and unfair. That's it.
Thank you. Any other on the teacher's contract? Any other comments? Seeing none, we will move to, I don't think there's probably any need to discuss Article 5. So we will move on to the Teamsters. And Diane.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
It's Diane LaChance at 264 Amesbury Road. I did want to speak to Article 5. May I do that now?
Yes, oh, of course. I'm sorry. Yep, go ahead.
Yes. I am greatly concerned about people in town who have lost their jobs. I don't want to see any of the teachers lose their jobs, but I also am of the mind that I would hope by Friday that we might hear more from the school board on what the budget might look like if we were to retain the teachers without a new contract at their current pay, the current third-year contract they have, how that would affect the budget so that we could discuss the contracts next year when we know more about the real impact of COVID-19 on this community as a whole. I don't know that I've ever seen the school board present the statement that if the contracts are voted down and if the voters also say no to bringing it back again this year, that you would actually suggest that you would take judicial action to override both of those votes in order to bring the contract back before next year. That is the heavy-handedness that bothers me about the school board. It comes in many different forms, and I just found that unnecessary. It may be legally true, and we could deal with it if there was a real reason after the voters were to vote both of those down, if we really had to then bring it up. But to bring it up now, to me, is just heavy-handed. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve, ready. Go ahead.
Yeah, James, I'm sorry, I had trouble with my hand. I was trying to speak to the teacher's contract.
Okay, go ahead. Since we're still kind of there, that's okay.
Okay, I'll just say, as a blended family, we've had 4 kids in our family room in our basement doing remote learning with the teachers in the Hopkinton School District. It was amazing to see what this district did in a week, and then the week after that. And I know other districts in the state had to do the same thing, but having friends in other communities, I'll just say that the administration and the teachers in Hopkinton once again rose to the occasion, and it's been an amazing experience for the kids. And to even question at this point a teacher's contract that was negotiated in good faith, that brought back the contributions to the health insurance that was a concern of many in the community. My God, our teachers have gone so far above and beyond. Please, everybody, let's support our teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on Article 4, the teacher's contract, or the special meeting for the teachers if it fails? Okay, let's go to the Teamsters contract, Article 6, and I'll include the special meeting as well. If you have anything to add on that. Article 6 and 7 on the Teamsters contract. Seeing no comments, we will go to Article 8, the contingency fund. Seeing no hands, Article 9, which is the building repair, I believe. Okay, David DiPiano. Go ahead, David.
This is just a general statement, not necessarily a question, but I think as taxpayers, one of the biggest challenges that I have outside of the general budget is really around the maintenance and repairs. I have the same question on our town, but I would love to see a longer term plan, especially to a taxpayer, voting for multiple years in advance rather than 1 year at a time. I think it would help us make better decisions about what we're trying to fix and repair or replace versus just coming 1 year at a time. That's it.
Thank you. Any other comments for Article 9? Seeing none. Article 10, the Special Education Fund. Seeing none. Article 11, the vehicle replacement. Okay, seeing none. Oh, okay, there's Dennis. Thank you for coming back, Dennis.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Thank you, Dennis Goddard, Pennacook Road. My question on this was whether these vehicles are presently in use, given that there's not a lot of busing happening presently?
Sure. So our maintenance van is we're still doing some maintenance work. So that is used less than full time than it used to be, but it is still used. Our little bus is delivering lunches to the community. So that's still in use. And our fully accessible bus, I'd have to check, but actually the fully accessible bus is the one that's delivering food. Our small bus is just used every once in a while just to alternate it with our other bus.
Sure. So, I mean, for a lot of us that aren't driving a lot these days, we're not, for example, changing the air filter as much as we used to. How much smaller is the vehicle budget this year than last year? Or are you projecting smaller because of the fact that it's being used less and has been used less and quite likely will be used less?
Yeah, I'm sure we're saving on, it's only 3 vehicles, but we'll be saving on some gasoline. And as we said in the slide, we could push out the replacement if the mileage, if the mileage for a while is condensed. So it's
sort of a quantitative question. How much?
I don't have that number. I don't have the precise number of how much we're saving because of less gas on our 3 vehicles.
All right, thank you very much. We will go to, I believe it's actually Rich Houston on Moto E5 Play. If you unmute yourself, Rich. Or we had an accidental hand, I'm not sure. We'll go to, let's try David DiPiano. Oh, wait, hold on, Rich.
Sorry, I couldn't find the button.
No, that's okay.
I was just wondering for Friday if the school board could have some sort of figure available for how much we've saved on not the little school buses, but the big school bus contract. Obviously, those giant school buses, many hundreds of thousands of dollars a year we spend on school busing, and they've been parked. So could the school board please provide some sort of figure for the savings that we've had not using the big school buses? Thank you.
Thank you. Now let's try David DiPiano.
Once again, 68 Brookwood Lane. I know this is somewhat of a question, but more of a statement. I'm a little unsure why, when we're talking about vehicles, we're already planning to replace them on a given date. When we have personal vehicles, we replace them when they need to, and that's a decision that's often made, as the need arises. So I don't know if it's been mentioned, but I'd like to understand better why we're already planning to replace vehicles without hearing what's wrong with them in advance. Is it a mileage thing? Is it it's already showing signs of wear or decreased capacity in its use? That's a little bit of what I'm not sure of.
Okay, thank you very much for the comment. Any other comments at this point? I will then open it up to Article 12. Any other comments that can legally come before? And I will go to Diane.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Diane, go ahead.
It's Diane LaChance again, Amesbury Road. I'll just make this a statement that you may already be planning to do this, but I would hope that before this meeting concludes that you would let us know in some general way what the participation level was from the community in tonight's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. I will say that right now, it looked like the max that I saw for the number of participants was about 190, which I believe is just the Zoom and phone call-in numbers, and does not include the viewership on YouTube Live.
Which we had, Mr. Moderator, we had at one point 135 on YouTube Live. And I'll see if we can get an updated number, but at one point it was 135 on YouTube Live.
Okay, so approximately 325 in tonight's meeting. So thank you very much for that. And with that, I would like to thank everybody, all of those people on whichever method you came in on for participating today, and remind everybody that we will be meeting again on Friday with the contact information for the Zoom, YouTube Live, and phone are available on the school district website. Comments and questions can be submitted via email to moderator@sau66.org or by voicemail at 746-1089. And just a quick reminder that Friday I will be presenting offline comments and questions, proposing the amendments, and presenting the ballot, which we will use. And then we will have a question and answer session for everybody. Oh, thank you, Steve, for putting the contact information up with a brief outline of Friday's meeting, as well as there's the contact information and the numbers as well. And also on Friday's meeting, I will be reviewing Saturday's voting process again, and Saturday will be the voting 9 to 1 at the high school. Liz, do you have anything to add at this point?
No, I'd just like to thank all those who listened, watched, attended tonight's, tonight's meetings. And Friday's meeting, I think, will be very informative as well for our community to be prepared to vote on Saturday.
Great.
And thank you, James, for running a very nice meeting.
Thank you very much. And I would second the thanks to everyone participating and commenting. We couldn't do this without you. So with that, I will have this recess. We'll recess this meeting until Friday at 7 p.m. for the next online session. Thank you very much. Have a good night.